Thank you for attending the Research Bureau's 26th annual meeting. My name's Sandy Dunn, and I'm the general manager here at the DCU Center, but I also have the privilege of serving as the chairman of the Research Bureau. It's been 2 years that I've been chairman, and today is my official last meeting. And as you'll hear later in the program with the nominating committee report, I'm passing the gavel to Michael Mulrain, the Chief Financial Officer for the Polar Corporation, and happy to do so because I know he'll be a tremendous chairman. In addition to our speaker today, who will be introduced shortly, many of our state and local officials have joined us, and I've been asked to take a few moments to recognize those that have arrived so far. My apologies in advance if I miss people, always seems to happen, and I'd ask you to hold your applause to the end for the individuals. State Senator Harriet Chandler has not arrived yet, but should be here shortly. City Manager Michael O'Brien as well from the City of Worcester is due here shortly. The Mayor of the City of Worcester, Joseph O'Brien, is already here. Welcome. In addition, we have the DPWP, Department of Public Works and Parks Commissioner Robert Moylan has arrived, and the Town Manager Jim Malloy from Westboro. Additionally, we'd like to recognize that Dr. David Driscoll, former Commissioner of Education for the state of Massachusetts, is here. It's a pleasure to have all of you here today, and many of these individuals, as well as many who have not joined us yet or are unable to join us today, provide the Research Bureau with their expertise as well as access to a variety of information and data, which are critical to the work of the Bureau. In addition, they often provide ideas and insights that can only be seen from their vantage points in the trenches of the work, that oftentimes create the Bureau's best work in benchmarking, research, reports, and forums. If each of you that are here, and those that maybe I didn't announce that's a local, regional, or state official, if you could please rise for a moment for recognition. Up you go. I'd just like to give thankful applause for the work that you do. Again, from the citizens of Worcester and the region, we thank you for all you do. And the work of the Research Bureau to fulfill its mission in conducting independent, nonpartisan research and analysis of public policy issues to promote informed debate and decision-making would not be possible without the tremendous financial support that we receive from corporations, small businesses, local foundations, and individuals. Just look around the room to see all the banners of all those organizations that are contributing to us. I would ask that all of the individuals here in the audience today that are members of any of these contributing organizations also stand for a moment. Up you go. This is what they did in class. To be recognized for your leadership in our community and our region. Thank you very much. And of special recognition are two of our primary sponsors today, Commerce Bank, our presenting sponsor, and Bowditch and Dewey, our leadership sponsor. So one more time, if those individuals that are here from either of those organizations could please stand up to be recognized. Both of these groups are exceptional in their support to the Research Bureau, and we would like to recognize you. Bowditch and Dewey, Commerce Bank. Thank you for your leadership. Last year, Commerce Bank was the presenting sponsor of our 25th anniversary speakers series. This year, they continue as the presenting sponsor of both our annual meeting and our forums. In addition to their financial support, Brian Thompson, President and CEO, has provided his leadership as a member of the Executive Committee and for the past 2 years as Vice President of Finance, and has recently agreed to continue in this role under Mike Mulrain as the chairman for hopefully the next 2 years. Certainly, Brian's willingness to provide his time, leadership, expertise, and the financial support of the bank is very significant, but most of all, Brian is one of the Bureau's biggest boosters. When he is not attending one of our programs, he is encouraging others to attend. When he's not recommending an idea for a report, he is thoroughly reading and contributing his insights to a current draft report that's on the table. Brian does not just show up. He engages the organization and consistently challenges Roberta and the staff to continue to set the highest of standards, a challenge which they regularly meet and exceed. Frankly, the Research Bureau could not have a better ambassador. Please join me in welcoming Brian Thompson to the podium to say a few words.
Good afternoon and welcome, and thank you, Sandy, for your kind remarks. Commerce Bank is delighted to again be the presenting sponsor of the 26th annual meeting of the Research Bureau. A special welcome to Senator Brown and to the other honored guests who are here this afternoon. The Research Bureau is a very important contributor to our region's success, and we congratulate so many of you who have been involved with the Bureau over the many years. We, along with other corporate supporters, have been sponsoring a speaker series which provides a forum to learn and discuss the many critical issues which our cities and state are encountering today, whether it be pension reform, education reform, or the many issues surrounding state and local budgets. Each of these forums has been led by leaders who are highly respected in their fields. Our next forum will be led by Ed Glazier of Harvard University, a national leader in urban affairs, and he will be in the fall of this year, and information will become available over the course of the summer. We and other members of this community provide financial support to the Research Bureau in order to provide a forum for informed debate. Fact-based research developed by the Bureau has allowed our citizens and public policymakers to make more informed decisions on issues that are so important to all of us. Over the past 26 years, Dr. Roberta Schaefer and her team have stayed the course, consistently delivering high-quality information, which has become models for other communities. Thank you, Roberta. And to your team as well. I would also like to acknowledge her for being awarded an honorary degree in humane letters from WPI, which happened about 2 weeks ago at their graduation ceremony. Congratulations, Roberta. I'd also like to recognize and thank Sandy Dunn, our outgoing president, for her leadership of this organization. Her warm style and laser focus on important issues has led us to complete some very important work. EPA stormwater regulation in Worcester. Will taxpayers be drained? It's a very complex issue in the most recent report that was put forth. And I think it's included in your materials that you were given today, and hopefully you'll take a time to read it. It's a very interesting issue and an important one for our city. So on behalf of Commerce Bank and its chairman and owner, Duddy Massad, and the other sponsors of this year's annual meeting, we salute the important role the Research Bureau has played in making our region a better place. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. A terrific booster. We are quite fortunate also to have an outstanding board of directors and executive committee who are all committed to the success of the Research Bureau. I won't recite everybody's names, and the long list is included in your annual report that you've received on your chairs, but I would ask that as a whole you would all stand to be recognized. As you would expect, they contribute invaluable amount of time, talent, and leadership to the Bureau. And now we do have a brief business meeting for the group, if you would indulge us for a moment. First, we need acceptance of the previous meeting's minutes that were included in your registration packages when you arrived. Do I have a motion to accept the minutes? Thank you. A second? All in favor? Opposed? Thank you. Now, I would like to recognize our past chairman of the board and current chairman of the nominations committee, Brian Buckley, to the podium to provide you a report of the nominations committee.
Thank you, Sandy. Speaking for the nominations committee, it's been a pleasure to work with Sandy these past 2 years, and I hope you'll join with me in offering a round of applause for all the good work she has done in her past 2 years as chairman. Our first vote will be for officers to serve a one-year term. Sandy let the cat out of the bag as to who the next chairman is, Mike Mulrain. Vice Chairman Karen Duffy, Vice President for Finance Brian Thompson, Treasurer Agnes Cull, Clerk Dee Moskos. May I have a motion to approve the nominations for officers as presented? Seconded? All in favor? Opposed? The Executive Committee will have people serving 1-, 2-, and 3-year terms. They are me, Fred Mulligan, Joe McManus, Bruce Galtney, John Splain, Sandy Dunn, George Tetler, and Gail Flanders Weiss. May I have a motion to approve the nominations for Executive Committee as presented? Seconded? All in favor? Opposed? Joining the Board of Directors in 2001 are the following: Dr. David Angel, Dr. Robert Johnson, James Leary, Jennifer Louisa, Stephen Carpinella, Thomas Field, Dr. Mitchell Saunders. May I have a motion to approve the nominations for the Board of Directors as presented? Seconded? All in favor? All opposed? Renewing for a 3-year term on the Board of Directors are Michael Angelini, Brian Buckley, Dr. Jack Calareso, Dr. Francesco Cesareo, Scott Conti, Ellen Cummings, Ellen Dunlap, Sandy Dunn, Alita Fazzone, Alan Fletcher, David Forsberg, Bill Kelleher, Richard Kennedy, Richard Leahy, Dr. Peter McDonald, Flip Morgan, Michael Mulrain, Francis Paquette, James Paulus, Charles Rippikoff, Philip Schwackman, John Splain, George Tetler, Brian Thompson, Michael Totsis, David Woodbury, and Dennis Yost. We have a motion to approve the nominations for renewal for a 3-year term as presented. Seconded? All in favor? Opposed? On behalf of the Nominations Committee, I'd also like to thank for their service Dr. Janelle Ashley, Thomas Manning, and Barbara Bacon-Smith. Thank you for all you did to help us out. That's the nomination report. Sandy?
Thank you. He did that well. He did that well. Welcome to all of you that are returning to the board and all the new members of the board. Congratulations. Now, you would think, after 25 years on the Research Bureau, that Roberta Schaefer would have run out of things to say. And yet, with the same level of energy, enthusiasm, and commitment with which she began this organization, she continues to bring to the forefront the most pressing issues facing our community: education, community development, public services, and fiscal responsibility, just to name a few. Since those early days, she has certainly mastered more forms of media, including the stable reports that are issued, but also participating in other print forums, on the radio, on television, in open public forums, and on the website. Don't miss our website. When an issue comes up that begs for a more in-depth analysis, Roberta doesn't just educate herself about it. She brings us all along for the ride, initiating an open, transparent discussion and an exchange of ideas that are the hallmark of a democratic society. We are all better citizens because of her tireless work. It is this, her role as a public educator and moderator of public discussion in a wide array of contexts, that led the Worcester Polytechnic Institute, WPI, earlier this month, as Brian mentioned, to confer on her an honorary doctorate of humane letters. Citing her work, I quote, "To enlighten the people of central Massachusetts, promoting informed debate and improved decision-making about the policy issues that have a direct impact on our daily lives." For me personally, Roberta, you have continually provided enlightenment, and yes, you have made me a better citizen, as I'm sure many in the people will be willing to affirm. I am honored to have worked with you these past 2 years, and I look forward to continuing to be a part of the organization. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming the Research Bureau's President and CEO, Dr. Roberta Schaefer, to the podium.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Sandy, for those very generous remarks. Good afternoon, and permit me, please, to reiterate Sandy's welcome and to thank you all for coming and joining us for the Research Bureau's 26th annual meeting. And I also want to echo her thanks to all our sponsors, to our board members, and to our executive committee members, all of whom volunteer countless hours of their time to ensure the Research Bureau's success. I would also like to thank the many corporations, local foundations, and individuals who have supported and continue to support the Research Bureau, even during these most challenging times. The confidence that you've expressed in the Research Bureau's work has provided the encouragement and the sustenance for us to continue, and my heartfelt thanks. One of those individuals who devoted considerable time to the Research Bureau and has had a substantial impact in shaping its direction was Mark Colborn. I would like to take a moment to remember our former executive committee member and board chairman, whose untimely death left a deep hole not only in the lives of his immediate family, but in the lives of his extended family at the Research Bureau. As you will see from our tribute to Mark in our annual report, he was largely responsible for introducing government performance measurement into the Research Bureau's agenda. While he was chairman, we received a 7-year grant from the Alfred P. Sloan Foundation to do this work. After completing his term as chairman, Mark worked with the staff on our New England States Performance Measurement Project, funded by the Sloan Foundation and the Government Finance Officers Association. And he guided us in developing the methodology for determining total public employee compensation. It was a privilege to have worked with him and benefited from his instruction and his friendship, and our heartfelt sympathy to his wife, Bernie, and his daughters, Jamie and Shannon, and his son-in-law, Jason, who I hope have graciously joined us today. Thank you so much, and our deepest sympathy to all of you. You will also note in our annual report that regardless of what public policy issue we study, the inescapable theme that unites them all, is whether we can afford them now and whether they are sustainable over the long term. The two most obvious ones, and Brian touched on these, are public employee health insurance and pensions, which the Research Bureau has been analyzing and educating the public about for years. We want to congratulate City Manager Michael O'Brien for his willingness to tackle the health insurance issue for the past 7 years and for the innovative programs he has developed and the City Council has wisely approved. Those policies have saved the city over $100 million taxpayer dollars and several hundred jobs, which have translated into saving services for the taxpayer. The alternative was to lay off employees to pay for the health insurance of those left standing. We are pleased to see that the Worcester School Committee has been able to negotiate a similar arrangement regarding health insurance with the Education Association of Worcester. Another public policy involving enormous costs to local ratepayers, about which the Research Bureau recently issued a report that Brian referred to, relates to proposed stormwater regulations mandated for Worcester by the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency. Of course, none of these issues that we tackle is unique to Worcester. What happens here is representative of what every city and town across the nation must address to comply with federal rules and regulations. The controversy between Worcester and the EPA involves the fact that the EPA's draft permit includes 2 different standards for reducing stormwater pollution. One, reducing stormwater pollution to the maximum extent practicable, would cost ratepayers about $20 million to meet, and the other, requiring stricter stormwater quality standards, would cost about $1 billion to meet. The second standard would increase the average homeowner's sewer bill to about $1,000 annually. Of course, the bill for businesses would be much higher. Thus far, EPA has refused to reconcile these 2 standards or simply allow Worcester to reduce stormwater pollution to the maximum extent practicable. Therefore, the city argues it would have to install the more expensive end-of-pipe treatments to avoid legal action by EPA or, more likely, environmental advocacy groups. The Great Recession and the enormous debt we have mounted from government expenditures on ever-expanding programs have laid bare the need to make choices. Are these burdensome expenditures needed to ensure the public health of human beings, or do they achieve marginal improvements in water quality? Do we need to clean every river and stream to be swimmable, or is it sufficient that some aquatic life flourish in these waters? To educate yourself about EPA operations and the costs and benefits of various options, all of which affect the pocketbook of every taxpayer, I suggest you follow the Telegram and Gazette's recent advice in its May 25th editorial and read the Research Bureau's report. It is incumbent upon all of us to think in terms of making hard choices if we are going to restore our nation to the prosperity from which we have all benefited. The quality of our research has been a hallmark of the Bureau since its founding, and its accessibility in terms of clarity with which the reports are written and their availability to the public free of charge on our website, thanks to our many benefactors, depends on having an able staff. And I wish to commend the Bureau's team for its exemplary work. Stephen Ide, Senior Research Associate responsible for public policy reports, Laura Swanson, Public Project Manager for all our benchmarking reports, surveys, and special projects, and Jean Dieso, Director of all our programs and operations. I also want to thank Sandy Dunn's staff here at the DCU Center for all the logistical arrangements for today's event, and a special thanks to Sandy's executive assistant, Paige Williamson, who over the past 2 years of Sandy's term as Bureau Chairman has been extremely helpful and kind to Research Bureau staff. And speaking of Sandy Dunn, I would like to ask her to step forward. Again. Sandy has shepherded the Research Bureau through what have probably been the 2 most challenging years in our history. The recession, coupled with particular changes, you weren't supposed to do it yet, Steve, jeez, timing is everything, okay. The recession, coupled with particular changes in Worcester's economy and the need to rethink our business model, has required considerable time, analysis, energy, and skill. There is no doubt about Sandy's ability to meet the challenge. She's a quick study, she grasps the essence of a problem, sets a course of action, does not equivocate, and carries out the plan. She is tough while being very generous and kind. The staff and I have benefited greatly from her vast experience, friendship, wise counsel, and good humor. After 2 years of hard work, we are pleased to present Sandy with the Research Bureau chair, in which he can finally sit down and rest.
Thank you.
But don't get too comfortable because I still have you on speed dial.
Thank you.
Thank you. And now we turn to the main attraction of today's event, U.S. Senator Scott Brown. Of course, if my prediction in December 2009 had been incorrect, I would not be in the fortunate position of introducing the senator today. Many of you know that I'm a panelist on Central Mass Chronicles, a regular cable TV show, where 4 panelists discuss current public policy issues. The last show of each year, which occurs about December 10th, is devoted to the year in review and predictions about the upcoming year. After summarizing the highlights of 2009, Ben Dobson, the moderator of the show, shifted gears quickly and asked, "Roberta, what's going to be the biggest surprise of 2010? Without skipping a beat, I said, Senator Scott Brown will be elected to the Senate. My fellow panelists, I hate to say this, chuckled a bit, and Ben moved on to the others' predictions. While political punditry is not my strong suit, I kept noticing news brief news clips about the candidate crisscrossing the state, driving his old truck, wearing his now famous barn coat, meeting with small groups of people just about every day. I was impressed with this strategy, and it occurred to me that it had been so long since Massachusetts had a Republican senator that perhaps he was being underestimated. Since his election, the senator gets constant scrutiny by the media. Little news clips are a thing of the past. As all of you know from his many interviews with the press and his recently published autobiography, this is a man who can roll with the punches and beat the odds. He serves on some very important committees, including the Senate Committee on Armed Services, the Committee on Veterans Affairs, the Homeland Security and Governmental Affairs Committee, and the Senate Committee on Small Business and Entrepreneurship. Yet he manages to find time to return to the Commonwealth regularly and keep in touch with his constituents. I mentioned earlier in my remarks the need to make hard choices. Senator Brown has shown every evidence that he is conscious of the burden he bears for making those choices, and in this we wish him Godspeed. Please join me in thanking Senator Brown for accepting the Research Bureau's invitation and to be here today, and we welcome him again to Worcester. Senator Brown.
All right. Is it Friday yet? Well, first of all, I'm honored to be here. I don't know if you were aware, but we opened up our Worcester office today. We had a nice ribbon cutting, had a couple of meetings already with various groups around the Worcester area. I spent a ton of time here. One of the most memorable days of my life is referenced in my book that some of you got, is the night that I know the mayor was concerned about us closing down, obviously the downtown area in front of Mechanics Hall, and just the overwhelming amount of support and just excitement is something I will never, ever forget. I have a very special place in my heart for Worcester, and I recognize I actually had a chance to read your annual report and understand each and every one of those issues, and they're real. And as my time as an assessor, a selectman, a state rep, state senator, I understand, I voted on quite a few of these issues to try to give you all here in Worcester and the surrounding communities the tools and resources you need to try to get your fiscal house in order, because there are very difficult challenges out there, and anyone who tells you that things are great, they're not telling you the truth. We are trying to get our fiscal and financial house in order right now. This moment in time, right now, we have that opportunity to actually do that. If we can kind of, step outside our comfort zone and actually work across party lines together on bills that actually have a chance to actually pass, and not just spotting people for the upcoming election, we can get through this together. And I'm a little bit frustrated at times. Most recently, all the 4 votes we did most recently regarding the budget, none of them had a chance of passing, but they just did it because they're trying to spot people. I get it. The good news is, however, is that there's a working group with the vice president and the leadership teams on both parties trying to come up with a bill that actually will pass the Senate and have an opportunity to solve the very real problems that we're facing. Because if we miss this opportunity right now, then you will be talking next year about how to deal with the debt and deficit and the cuts that will be forthcoming. And whether you're dealing with a lot of the unfunded mandates that you're referring to, listen, I agree with you. We shouldn't be doing things and putting policy down the food chain to the states, and then the states down to the local municipalities without providing you the funds to do it, and implement it. It's just wrong. And really, all we should be talking about are debt, deficit, taxes, spending, jobs, and national security. That's it. It's all we should be talking about right now. We have a moment in time right now to get these things in order. And I can tell you what, it's been my deepest honor and privilege to represent you all in the United States Senate. Because, as I travel around the country, and I've traveled around the state, I'm back every weekend, not just once in a while. I'm back every single weekend. I'm back and forth sometimes once or twice a day, back and forth to Washington to try to, coordinate and meet with the businesses. And every time I'm back, I'm meeting with business leaders. Some of you have already met with. I was at companies today in the Worcester area. I've met with you. I understand what the challenges are. And right now, it's about uncertainty. You don't know what's next. You just were talking about it. You don't know what's next. And I met some folks today, and they said, we need to get the big corporations to hire. I said, I know. But they're not going to because there's uncertainty. There's no the tax uncertainty, the regulatory uncertainty. You referenced it just now with some of the EPA regulations that are coming down the pike. I mean, there's no certainty. In my role as a United States Senator, as a high elected official for this state and for this country, is to make sure that you have that you have somebody there who's advocating on a daily basis, trying to say, you know what, guys, this is wrong. We can do it better. You deserve better. And you didn't send me to Washington to do nothing. I know that. You had a choice, and you made your position loud and clear. You sent me down there to read the bills, to understand the bills. If they increase taxes and increase the deficit, I'm not supposed to vote for it. Good for Massachusetts, great jobs, good for the country? Scott, work your tail off. Go get it. Well, that's what I've been doing. I've been that independent voter and thinker. And regardless of how they try to portray it, that's what I'm doing. And we're getting a lot of good other people on both sides of the aisle who are starting to do it too. It's not going to happen overnight, but I can tell you what, there's good people of goodwill on both sides of the aisle right now trying to get our fiscal and financial house in order. And you can see we have challenges. We've got the high unemployment, the high cost of doing business, the high cost of energy. In Massachusetts, a tough business climate. Adding all those things together and just trying to say, gosh, we had Joe the baker. He provided pastries. And he said to me today, he says, Scott, listen, I work 80 hours a week. 80 hours a week. I'm saying, my goodness, when does he see his family? He said, the cost for flour for a trailer, I buy it by the trailer every month, $17,000. It's up to $29,000 just overnight. Now he said, where does that come from? Where does that money actually come from? If you break it down to the basic levels of what they do in Washington and what they do in Beacon Hill, this kind of go along, get along mentality all the time, it doesn't translate down to the lowest common denominator, the hardworking men and women of this state and this country who are just trying to pay their bills and just trying to take their wife and kids to the movie, pay the tuition at schools. Just kind of get a little bit ahead. And every time you think that there's an opportunity to put a little bit of money away, bang, another rule or regulation comes down the pike. Bang, there's some tax uncertainty. There's always something around the corner, and that's why people are a little bit nervous about hiring. And I've talked about it. Listen, I've always said, there's a role for regulations. There's a role for government. We have a lot of elected officials in this auditorium right now. But also government sometimes needs to know when to get out of the way and let American ingenuity and creativity actually just do their jobs. And actually just get firing on all cylinders, because there's no doubt in my mind as I travel around to Afghanistan, Pakistan, Israel, Dubai, Jordan, when I'm traveling around the world and the country, in the world especially, the business leaders, the kings and queens and prime ministers I meet, you know what they talk about, folks? Talk about jobs. You know what we do in Washington? Talk about everything except jobs. Last year, it was a little scary. The good news is this year, I will say that we finally have sat down because of the debt ceiling issue, because of the budgetary problems, because of the fiscal reality of what's happening when PIMCO doesn't want to deal in our debt and the S&P sending warning shots across the bow and we're running into these major deficits. When I went down there, $11.95 trillion national debt when I got elected. It's over 14.5 or 6 and counting. Projected to be potentially $26 trillion. It's unbelievable. We just had Senator Copper and I, a gentleman I have, a Democrat I have great respect for. We're on a committee together. We're just actually trying to wrestle with a lot of the contracting and just kind of silly government things that happen. And we had a hearing before the end of last week where just through overpayments alone, for example, you have a business, let's say you have a life insurance business, and then somebody passes away. You'd pay them 3 to 4 to 5 times instead of the one time you're supposed to pay in the policy. Well, the government does that to the tune of $150 billion a year, just through a mistake. And here we are, we're wrestling about $61 billion. Remember, we almost shut down the government. Yet they're doing silly things like that on the other end, and it's like, hello? So my job is to work with Senator Carper and others, so other people of goodwill who actually want to come and deal with these very real fiscal issues, to try to squeeze out all the waste, fraud, and abuse, all the duplication, all the good stuff, because until the federal government gets its fiscal house in order, the taxpayers of this country and of this state view a lack of trust. Before you and others like you give any money to the federal government, you need to know that they're good stewards of your money, that they're maximizing that dollar bill, as the mayor here has done, and the various council members and the individual communities around the area. That's what you've done, so why shouldn't the federal government do it as well? And I'm on, as you said, the Armed Services, Homeland, Veterans, Small Business, fought to get on the Small Business Committee. We have a good small business bill. And my hope is that instead of hitting, punting for, kicking for a field goal, we actually punch it in and get a nice touchdown, and everyone takes a victory lap. But right now, the majority leader's holding that bill up because of an amendment that Senator Snowe, the ranking member, has that'll take that bill and really make it a good bill for you all, for anybody who's in small business, extending and reauthorizing a lot of those obviously funds that you need, those opportunities, that level playing field that you deserve, and also reeling in a lot of the things that you're talking about. They're right here in your book, dealing with a lot of these things that you focus on in an independent, thoughtful manner. So, I reflect back to last year, and I won't lie, it's been pretty intense, I won't lie. You see it. Apparently the election season started already. But I'm going to continue to do my job. 2011 is the time for solving problems. And when I look at what's happening, just take the fishing industry alone. What NOAA and those groups have done to decimate the fishing industry with the fines, and to the point we're actually holding a public hearing and getting the federal officials out here to say, what's going on? And where's the money, by the way, that you took from the fishermen? I mean, a lot of the just the over-regulation, the lack of consistency. You're given a plan if you have a new drug you want to get approved, if you have a new way to handle environmental issues, you have a certain plan, you're given a plan, and then in the middle of the plan, they change it. It costs millions of dollars to restructure, change things as to where you're going. I mean, we obviously fixed the 1099 issue, you're aware of that. It only took us a year to do something that simple. They have the 3% tax when you do, and a lot of you do work with government, and they charge you 3% just to have that privilege. Why? The medical device tax, especially in this area, 225 plus companies. It's the entire net profit for some of those companies. Why? So it's just about doing it better. And when you look at what's happening globally, it's no longer Worcester competing against Springfield. Springfield and Worcester competing against Boston, and Boston against New York, and Massachusetts against Rhode Island, and it's not. It's a company here in Worcester and the surrounding areas and in Massachusetts competing globally. And everything's global now. You've seen it. Facebook, Twitter, IMEM, I have no idea what they're talking about, quite honestly. Okay, but it's out there, and we have to take advantage of it because everyone else is. But how do you do that when we have the second highest corporate tax rate in the world? With Japan, when they lower theirs, and it's more than likely they will based on everything that happened, we'll be the highest. Well, how do you compete? Or do you just deal with certain industries and close certain subsidies and kind of target certain areas, or do you do a complete restructuring of the tax code to make us competitive, everybody competitive equally, so we can compete on a global basis? I mean, how do we do that? I mean, it's just common sense to me. I don't quite get why we don't take everything and work together to try to basically make us more competitive on a global basis, because the only way we can take everything that we did here in the debt commission. Remember the president, he says, I'm going to do a debt commission, we're going to work with that. And then he gave the State of the Union speech, we're going to do this, and in his budget he didn't do anything. Well, if we took everything that he suggested in the debt commission, we did every single thing, and we actually don't get you hiring again, and you really consistently hiring good, high-paying, solid-paying jobs, then none of this works. It doesn't work. So as I said, I'm down there battling each and every day, trying to have them step outside their comfort zone, trying to have them think about a different way, a better way to do it. Because we can do it better, folks. As you've done it better in your own businesses, we as high elected officials can also do it better and lead by example. I have filed many proposals to chip away, to get that conversation going, the Tax Withholding Relief Act, which would obviously repeal that 3%, remember I talked about that 3% tax? Even the Congressional Budget Office says it will cost more to implement that than it'll ever raise in revenue. And what kind of bill, it's only in Washington, folks, that they would do something like that. So wouldn't common sense dictate that, hey, let's fix it? So, in addition to what we're doing, I just want to kind of give you a brief overview as to what's kind of fact and what's kind of fiction. I don't want to leave you with the feeling that we're hopeless, that it's hopeless, because I see with the challenges come great opportunities. I'm an optimist. If you've read my book, which you referenced, I am an optimist. I believe so much that we live in the greatest country in the world. As I travel around the world, there's no doubt in my mind. When I get off the plane, I say, oh, thank goodness I'm home. We live in the greatest country in the world, and we have the greatest opportunity. But we need to have our elected officials and our government agencies give us the opportunities and tools to actually realize that potential. And I think if we can just step back a little bit, just let everyone take a deep breath, whether it's a regulation, whether it's a code, whether it's just take a deep breath. Let us catch up. Let us see if it works, instead of keep going on and on and on and on. The good news is, the first time since I've been there, that the leader has allowed us to actually take up bills, file a bill, the FAA bill, the patent bill, file a bill, keep it open for debate, let amendments be filed, not move for cloture, which means shut off debate, and actually move forward and actually get a good bill. First time was this year. Then we went into the small business bill. This potentially can be a good bill, but then there are some amendments where, oh my gosh, we're going to have to take a tough vote. So let's pull it back and not do it. Then you had the budget votes that came up. Instead of solving problems, they're playing political games. So I challenged the majority leader to stop playing games and work together to solve these very real problems that we have, because we have an opportunity right now. You as taxpayers and citizens of this area and obviously of this country, I think you want us to solve the problems. I think you want us to go down there and actually get our debt and deficit under control so we can be lean and mean and ready to go compete on a global basis. Because if we don't do it, folks, we're missing that opportunity, and I'm concerned. But the good news is, since I've been back, we've had about 70 hours of meeting with really world-renowned leaders on the economy. Think tanks, liberal, conservative, all different types. You want to bring them in, you can bring them in. We've had probably 65 to 70 senators sitting down in a room just like this, a little smaller, but sitting down and listening, just like you're listening to me. And you know what? We all agree that the numbers are real. That's the good news. We agree. It's just a question of how we get there to fix it. Do we go this way? Do we do this way? Do we do kind of one of these things? Well, I'd like to do it this way. Take a little bit of everything and work together to have thoughtful, judicious, realistic cuts, whatever it takes to get to that number, whatever we need to do. And then people say, well, what about tax increases? Well, listen. As I said, everyone I speak with, and maybe I speak with a different type of person, they say, you know what, Scott, we'll help, but you need to get your fiscal house in order first, because I don't trust where that money's going. I see all the waste right now. I'm not going to contribute to it. I'd rather give it to my kid for college. It's not happening. So my message, when I was with the president, and we're having that meeting, and I will say that meeting was that we had about 2 or 3 weeks ago, sitting down with the vice president and the president in a room, in a rectangular position. It was the first time since I've been there that there was a tremendous back and forth. And we were actually talking, not kind of preaching or yelling or, basically playing that political game, but actually talking about what we can do. It was refreshing. I felt so energized after it was over. And my comments to the president, I was the last one to speak, is, Mr. President, as I'm saying here, we have an opportunity, sir, to do something, but we need to do something. Just do one thing, just do something. Because we keep talking and talking and talking. I referenced the 1099. It took us a year to do that simple thing, sir. So please, take all the low-hanging fruit and let's just do it. Executive order number 1, fix it. Fix all the stuff that we're doing that's inappropriate, that's the waste, the fraud, the abuse, the overlap. Just fix it. And my hope is that we'll take advantage of that and we'll work together to do just that. We have an opportunity also to promote trade. We have a lot of the trade pacts, trade agreements that are coming up, South Korea, Colombia, and Panama. South Korea has a $1 trillion economy. I get many meetings regularly about opening up new markets from the ambassadors of those countries. And as I said, I'll work with anybody, folks. And I'll just tell you 2 stories, and then I'll have to head out. I have to get cracking, but I am the luckiest guy in the world. I'm going to tell you, I am the luckiest guy in the world. To think, you're right, I was driving around in my truck, and thank you. I'd love to hear your prediction for the 2012 election. Driving around the truck with the barn jacket, but that's who I am. I mean, I have a truck. It's got 220,000 miles on it, and my daughter gave me the jacket. It's the only jacket I have that doesn't say Boston College on it, and no offense, Holy Cross, but when you have 2 daughters, okay, if you don't wear or do what one daughter says, the other one gets mad and vice versa. So every time I had a chance to wear my daughter's jacket, and when I was with my youngest, she was happy. So it was a happy family. So that's who I am. But I am the luckiest guy in the world. When I had one of the great opportunities I had was to go out to the Reagan Library to speak at the 100th birthday keynote speaker. Mrs. Reagan asked me. I'm like, oh my goodness, Scott Brown from Rentham driving the truck. It's right in the garage. And I get to go out and visit this amazing facility, first of all. They've totally redone it. You really should go. It's JFK Library's fantastic. Ronald Reagan Library, 2 of the best facilities I've ever been to. Really historic. Gave the speech, had a nice dinner with Mrs. Reagan. And I'm a history guy. Like many of you here, I said, Mrs. Reagan, I really want to know about the relationship between Tip O'Neill and Ronald Reagan, President Reagan. She says, you know what, Scott? Sitting right next to her, sharp as a tack, frail but sharp as a tack. She says, Scott, you know what? They loved each other. They truly loved each other. When Ronnie was shot, he almost died. He was in and out of a coma. He almost died. And no one was allowed into the room, nobody. And it's give and take for 3 or 4 days. And somehow, Tip O'Neill either bribed or threatened somebody to get into the room. And he took off his shoes, he shuffled up to the bed, and he put his hand on Ron's shoulder, and he started reciting the Lord's Prayer. And then Ron woke up and started reciting the prayer as well. And at the end of it, and I'm paraphrasing, Tip O'Neill bent over and kissed him and said, Mr. President, I love you, the country loves you, get well soon. And I bring that up because you'll see me battling each and every day. You'll see me, talking about the issues and fighting, how I think is important based on those 5 parameters that I talk about. But at the end of the day, I want to go have a beer with the guy. I want to be able to have that personal relationship, to the point where we can still work after hours and still go solve the people's business. That's who I am. That's how I've always been. That's the first story. And that's why, I do have a picture. When you've read, does he really have a picture of Senator Kennedy? Yeah. I have a picture of Senator Kennedy in my office. Right when I walk in, there's a big mirror there, and right there with some other special pictures is a picture of him because it reminds me, regardless of how you thought about Ted Kennedy and his political beliefs, if you were a person of goodwill and you walked into his office and you had a good idea or a good thought and you presented it respectfully and thoughtfully, he would work with you. Or would get somebody in his office to work with you. And that's how I've tried to, run my office, whether it's opening up a new office in Worcester to address the concerns of this area, or whether it's, working across party lines to take some very tough votes for me politically. It doesn't matter, because I'll tell you what, folks, our country's future is way more important than my political future. And we have a moment right now in our history where we need to take some tough votes and tough choices. And when you read, when I read the paper once in a while, and you read that Scott Brown's wrestling, he's wrestling with his votes, he's weaving and bobbing, and no, I'm not. I read the bills. I understand the bills. If it increases taxes, increases the deficit, I'm not voting for it. If it's good for Massachusetts, creates jobs, good for the country, I'm going to vote for it. I'm usually the first one in to vote. The first one. out of 100 people. So don't think that I have any problem voting. I sleep very, very well at night. Very well, knowing that I'm prepared and ready to go to business each and every day. Up at 5, in bed at midnight, working my tail off for you and people like you who care very deeply about where our country's going. And the things that you do here in the Research Bureau, I remember speaking to a lot of the Worcester representatives, Lou Evangelitis and a lot of the, Karen and others who would often rely on your information. It's so important today to get unbiased, trust me, okay? You've seen the ads recently. To get unbiased, nonpartisan information today, in today's day and age, is critical. One of the things that I try to do each and every day is learn, because I don't know it all, folks. But to be able to rely on information like this is critical. So I want to commend you and your team for doing just that, because I'll read it, I'll absorb it, and I'll verify it. Trust but verify. So I want to thank you for the opportunity to come and speak with you all. I'm going to be heading out, unfortunately, but I tried to meet each and every one of you beforehand. So have a great summer, and keep up the great work. Thank you.
That's right, help yourself. Senator Brown, we're honored to have you here and that you were able to join us today. We thank you on the work that you do on behalf of the citizens of Massachusetts, and we thank you for your commitment specifically here to Central Massachusetts by opening the office here at the Federal Building here in the city of Worcester. With that, ladies and gentlemen, we're actually going to close our program, this new format, that brings us to the close of our 26th annual meeting. Please join us in the gallery for refreshments, and in the spirit of the Research Bureau, we hope that we'll have lively conversations and debate. Godspeed.